How do you build a legacy? One day at a time, one race at a time, one lap at a time. In 2025, Niece Motorsports celebrates its 10th season in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. The team was founded by Al Niece, a businessman and a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, serving in Vietnam. Entering its 10th season, Niece Motorsports has earned 9 wins and amassed 50 top 5 finishes and over 100 top 10s. The team has made NASCAR's version of the playoffs on 5 occasions. Follow along as we take you behind the curtain and into the stories of the people who've built the team. This is Amanda Efaw.
Hi, I'm Amanda Efaw. I'm the CMO at Niece Motorsports. Yeah, my role at Niece Motorsports has changed a lot since the team started. When Cody first came over here in 2016, there was no one in marketing or business or anything like that. My role was kind of just to help out with whatever he needed done on the administrative side so that they could get vehicles to the racetrack. I still had a full-time job at the time, and so I would work during the day, and during my lunch break I would book travel, book flights, book rental cars, update a website, all that kind of stuff, submit entry blanks, anything that he needed done so that he could focus on building race trucks. I didn't come over to Nice full time until the start of 2018, towards the end of 2017. And since then, my role has changed tremendously. We today actually have a full-fledged marketing department. We have someone who handles our social media. We have someone who handles all of our hospitality. We have someone who handles all of our PR. And I kind of oversee that. So it's really cool to see how Niece has grown, because in the very beginning, it was all very tactical. It was like, okay, we need to have a website, let's make a website. We need to have a Twitter page, let's make a Twitter page, or we need this social account. And so it was just like, here's what needs to be done, let's do it. And as we've grown, we've really been able to take a step back and actually put a lot of thought and planning into what we do. And our team is still small enough that each person has a very critical role. So I think just really how we all still wear a lot of hats, but I think we're more specialized now on the marketing side than we've ever been.
Let's talk about how you and Cody met.
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I moved back home because 2011 was a really unfortunate time to be seeking a full-time job anywhere. So I moved home and I worked for a government contractor for several months. I did love it. I knew it's not what I wanted to do. I'd always wanted to work in motorsports on the PR marketing side of things. So as I'm working at this government contractor, I'm reaching out all the time, emailing teams, seeing if they have internships or anything. And I was actually fortunate enough to get an internship with Ganassi. So I interned there unpaid for I think almost 8 months. And then from there, I shifted over to Octagon Sports Marketing, working with the Sprint Entitlement Program. That was a really great position, but it was almost like a step above an internship. So it wasn't like a full-time position you could live off of. So during that time frame, I was still looking for a more permanent position, and I ended up getting hired at Roush. At the time it was Roush Fenway to manage, they called it the account manager position. It was a few different hats. You did PR, you did a lot of sponsor relations, and then a lot of tactical things, ordering fire suits, apparel, all that kind of stuff. So I did that at Roush in 2013. I started there, and at that time Cody was the car chief on the number 60 team in the Xfinity series. So we met there at work.
Amanda Efaw's role at Niece Motorsports has grown over the years. It kind of started with her telling me it was a bad idea to go and start Niece Motorsports or work at Niece Motorsports because of the uncertainty and vulnerability that there was at Niece Motorsports, because there wasn't really a team at Niece Motorsports. It's kind of off on a whim, hoping a prayer. Didn't know this guy from Texas at all, and I had been in an established career for over a decade. She is established at a company, and she supported me. We took the dive. I did, and it's probably the best decision that we've ever made. Our niece has been great to our family. She's been great to her, myself. Allowed her to grow within the company from really working from home, staying at home, working part-time, to a full-time role, to allow her to be, the chief marketing officer and really take her degree and her abilities and maxim them out. She does a lot for us. She handles our travel. She handles our accounts receivable, accounts payable. She handles our IFTA. She handles all our marketing stuff. She oversees Paige and Leighton, and it's amazing what she's able to do. I've known that since I met her. What attracted me to Amanda was her work ethic. Outside of being a beautiful woman, her work ethic was second to none in the environment that we were in. And I love people that work hard. I love people that have a passion for what they do, and she has that. And she's been able to grow so much here as an individual, as a leader, in the work environment, but even unfortunately at home. I think, the leadership she has here and the ability she has here, definitely, she pushes me around more because of that. But she's an amazing woman, and I'm thankful that she's with Niece Motorsports, and I'm thankful that I get a call in my life.
What do you remember about the start of Niece Motorsports? What were some of those early days like?
Yeah, I remember Cody had actually left NASCAR in 2015, and pretty much I thought he was done with it. Like, he had kind of sworn it off. And all of a sudden, he's talking about, I'm gonna go help out a couple people for a race at Texas. And I'm like, what? Like, what is going on? What is this? And then in the off season, he started talking about, well, I think Al is gonna fly out here and we're gonna meet with him and maybe like he might start a team. And Cody is an eternal optimist, and I'm probably the exact opposite. I'm very much a realist, and I can tell you 400 things that are going to go wrong with any plan, because that's just how my brain works. And so I remember watching Cody's video, and he talked about when I said, don't do it, it's not stable enough, don't jump back in. But I remember a very specific moment where Al was supposed to fly out to North Carolina to meet with Cody about potentially starting a team. And Cody tells me that morning, he's like, Al said his flight is canceled. And I remember Cody and I being like, do we think this is for real? Was he really supposed to come? Was he gonna meet with us? Is he just is he sure that this is what he wants to do? And so I remember there was a lot of uncertainty in the beginning as to whether or not starting a team was something that Al really wanted to do. And I was probably more so, not that I didn't believe in Al, but I was pushing Cody to maybe, if he wanted to get back into racing, maybe to find something that was a little more stable and well-established, because he had 2 children at the time, and I'm thinking let's just have something that we know is going to be a little more stable.
Take us through 2019. There were a lot of ups and downs. Talk about Ross switching points in your kitchen, all the things.
2019 was a big year for this organization. I remember at the start of the year how excited Cody was that Phil was willing to come on board. Cody had worked with Phil in the past. I've worked with Phil in the past. We both thought very highly of Phil. He's extremely intelligent. He's a very hard worker. He knows his stuff. And for Phil to kind of take that leap of faith and join a small, unknown team, I know that was a big vote of confidence for Cody and what he and Al were building at Niece Motorsports. So to start the year that way, that was a really big deal. I remember at this time, we had an almost 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. So I was home and Cody would be at the racetrack. And I remember sitting in bed watching them win at Kansas, and I was just beside myself. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. I was crying. I was laughing. And I remember Cody calling me, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. And that was probably one of the coolest moments, just because it was like, you know, we had kind of joked about a lot of the people at Niece at that time felt like they had been kind of cast off from other teams. And so it was really cool to see all these people who maybe felt like they didn't get their chance, or they didn't have the vote of confidence before that they probably should have. It was really cool to see those people experience that kind of success and so early in 2019. Cody had, he had been working with Ross previously to that, and Cody thought the world of Ross. He still does. He knew he was really talented. He knew he was more talented than the equipment he was in at that time. And he was really excited to have Phil and Ross paired together. And after that first win in Kansas, Niece was still small enough that at that time our win celebrations were literally at our house, because it was 15 people maybe. And so I remember I'm like checking on food, walking in and out of the kitchen, and Tim Mooney has Ross cornered in the kitchen, and Tim may have had a few beverages at that point, and Ross is like, Tim is really tall, and so Ross is like looking up at Tim, and I can just hear Tim saying like, "You need to change your points, man. Like, you need to change your points." And I had gone in and out of the kitchen a few times, and Tim was still having this conversation with Ross, and so I finally was like, "Tim, leave him alone. Like, he's not going to do that. Just let him enjoy this. Let him celebrate." And then I don't even know how much time passed after that, but I got a call from Cody, and he was like, "What do we need to do for Ross to change his points?" And I was like, "What? This is really going to happen?" So, we get on the NASCAR site and figure out what form they need to fill out to do all of that. And I just remember, we were kind of in uncharted territory, because there wasn't really anyone that had made that decision at that time.
After we won Kansas and I was in victory lane, I called Amanda, because it was just, it's hard to win in NASCAR. I don't Cup, Xfinity truck, it's hard. Heck, it's hard to win at anything anymore in life. It seems like the competition and performance has risen so high. But making that phone call to her in victory lane, I was in tears. I was happy. I mean, I couldn't hardly talk, and I was happy for her, because we wouldn't have got there if it wasn't for her. It was more than Ross Chastain making a great save. It was more than Phil Gould having a great setup. It was everything. She was part of making sure the plane got there, as far as the right people were on the plane, the rental cars, the hotels, the bills got paid. Right? Like, calling her was just a moment where both her and I could embrace each other, long distance, but in that moment of just solitude, we made the right decision.
The rest of the year, obviously, it was a great year. To come up just a little bit short in Homestead. I know the team was proud but sad, but I remember just like an immense sense of pride in all the work that everyone had done, because no one would have ever expected that Niece Motorsports, that little tiny team, would have ever even been in contention for the championship. And so I remember just feeling so proud at what they had accomplished, that obviously it would have been wonderful to win the championship, but to come that close in such a short amount of time is something that I'm really proud of. I remember that same year, Ross did a sit-down interview with Caitlin Vincey at our shop in Statesville at the time. And it was a normal work day. And so Caitlin came in to talk to him. And I remember Ross telling this story. She looked around and she's like, "Oh, is it a day off? Where is everyone?" And Ross was like, "This is everyone. Like this." And she couldn't believe that a team that small was contending with, teams that were far more well-funded. So I think that kind of encapsulates what the 2019 year was like for us.
And kind of go into a little bit of your relationship with Ross.
Yeah, aside from the Chastain family itself, I'm not sure you'll find bigger Ross Chastain fans than the Efaw family. We truly think the world of Ross. He is one of the most genuine and sincere people I think that you'll meet in the sport. He comes from a wonderful family. His mom and dad are wonderful people. His brother, like just his whole family, they're tremendous people. From a personal perspective, Ross has been wonderful to our family. My kids run up to him and hug them, and he'll kneel down and chat with them and have little conversations with them. We took Colt out to Millbridge one time to run his little kart the first time he got it, and Ross came to watch. And he was sitting there watching him, and he's taking pictures of Cody working on Colt's kart, because he's like, Cody's going to want those pictures someday. I remember after the Charlotte win, that was Cody's first win as a crew chief, and I wasn't at the shop when they put the win sticker on the truck, and Ross wouldn't put the win sticker on the truck. He wanted Cody to do it, and he took a picture of that and sent it to me. And he was like, I just want you to have this. Like, it means so much to me that Cody and I were able to win together. And like that encompasses who Ross is as a person. He's just, it's not an act. It's not for the cameras. Like, that's him. He shows up, he puts in the work, he treats people well. And so just, across the board, what he's meant to the organization is also what he's meant to us, because he's treated us the same way.
Fast forward to 2023, we have our friend Carson. Talk about your first impressions of Carson and what it was like to see him get that first win, and kind of talk about the season as a whole.
Yeah, Carson is another person that obviously means a tremendous amount to Niece Motorsports. I remember he did a partial schedule for us, and he finished out the year in Phoenix. And I remember Cody calling me, and he's like, hey, GM is going to give Carson some sim time, but he's not old enough to rent a hotel room. Can he just stay with us? And I was like, my parents happened to be visiting at the time, so the room that we would have been able to put Carson in, my mom and dad were staying, and I was like, yeah, he can stay, but he's going to have to sleep on the couch. And so I had never met Carson at the time. Our kids had never met Carson at the time. And obviously Phoenix is a very late race, so they get back in the middle of the night. And so, we get up in the morning and our dogs are attacking Carson, and my kids are attacking Carson. And he's just like curled up on the couch in the living room. He picked the smallest couch in the house. I don't know why, but he just curled up with I'm pretty sure he had like a little Dale Jr. blanket that he was curled up with, that he had packed in his suitcase with him. And that whole weekend, because they raced on a Friday night, so he had the pleasure of spending Saturday and Sunday stuck at our house, which I'm sure is what every teenager wants, right? To be stuck at the boss's house with his kids and his wife. But he was great. He played with the kids, he ran around with them, he watched TV with them. And that, I joke, but it's probably not really a joke. Carson Hocevar is our daughter Peyton's most favorite person in the whole world. Like, she loves him. And honestly, rightfully so. He's always been so good to the kids. Just a few Carson stories with my kids. I remember sitting at Bristol Motor Speedway hours before he's racing, and he is sitting on the ground by our bus, covered in chalk, making a racetrack with them. And I mean, he did this for like over an hour. He helped coach Colt's T-ball team. He went to all of the practices and helped at the games. And these little kids had no idea even, someday they'll probably look back at pictures and be like, wait, what? That was my assistant T-ball coach? He carried Peyton across the driver introduction stage in Daytona on her 3rd birthday, which we joked like we'd obviously never be able to top her 3rd birthday.
There's photos of our kids with Carson Hocevar before anyone even knew who Carson Hocevar was. And, I remember before we went to Phoenix to try and run for a championship with Carson, that morning I wake up and I go downstairs and my daughter and son are watching, I'm going to butcher this, but the Charlie Brown's Great Pumpkin Adventure, or whatever it's called, and Carson's sitting there in a blanket, and my daughter and son are snuggled up with him and they're watching it, and I'm like, this is just crazy. Like, this kid is getting ready to go out and run for a championship in NASCAR, and my kids are just hanging out, and he's like a best friend to him. And Ross, right? We went to Darlington, and they just walk up to Ross and give him a hug, like he's Ross, and it's rewarding that they get to be around that, get to see that, and I pray that someday they get a look at them individuals when they get that age and see like, wow, Carson was 18, 19 years old and he had a camera and a microphone in his face, and you have real decisions, and all our livelihoods depended on how Carson hosted our race, and look at Ross and look what he's done and his abilities, and I hope they get to understand it and appreciate it more than, but they're role models for them.
What's it like to work with your spouse every day?
I feel like it's definitely probably harder for Cody to work with me than it is for me to work with him. I am someone that wears my emotions on my sleeve, or my face, I've been told. I am very passionate. Like when I do something, you get 100%, 110%. You're going to get everything I have. And I've been in roles where sometimes that's been misunderstood. And here, I think for me, one of the coolest things about working with Cody is that I know that he respects me. I know that he knows I'm a hard worker. He's always building me up and telling me that I'm good at what I do, that I'm intelligent. And so I've never felt like I've had to prove myself to him. I care about doing a good job, and you know, I would hope that the work we do speaks to that, but I've never felt like one of the tasks that I have to do is to prove to him that I'm smart or to prove to him that I can handle it. He's allowed me to take on a lot of roles that I probably wouldn't have been able to take on elsewhere. And, you know, we both kind of learned in this company as trial by fire. You know, when we started, we didn't have specialized positions for each role. And so by necessity, we both took on a lot of very different tasks. And some of them were right in our wheelhouse, and some of them were very far outside of our wheelhouse. And so I think that, you know, working with him has allowed me to develop my skill set in an environment where I've felt valued and appreciated. And I would hope that on his side, he knows that, you know, working with me, that I always have his back, that I'm always looking out for him.
Talk about some of what goes into running a race team that a lot of people don't get to see.
Yeah, there's so much more to it than I ever could have imagined in the beginning. You know, they say you don't know what you don't know, right? And just the amount of logistics involved is honestly mind-boggling. The parts and the pieces, and this having to be here then and going there and travel, and just Cody and I always joke that like the moment a vehicle makes it onto the racetrack, like you've kind of won in a sense, because it's so hard just for that to happen. You know, I've learned more than I could ever care to share about the documents that you have to fill out to have a hauler move down the highway, and workers' compensation, and, you know, what this part piece costs and what vendor to use for this, and when you need to order fire suits by. There's so much more that goes into it than what people realize, and honestly even what I realized in the beginning. I remember when Niece was as small as it was, there was no one else doing any of the administrative stuff. So I literally was submitting entry blanks from the hospital bed after having Colt. And we were booking rental cars in the hospital after. And so, you know, and I remember telling that story to someone, and they were like, why didn't someone else do that? And I remember being like, there was no one else, like it was us. And so I think that, you know, I guess on a lighthearted note, the amount of paperwork involved in running a race team is something that really caught me by surprise. There's so much more to it than what meets the eye. Just to get a paint scheme approved and on track, or to get a wrap ordered and installed, you know, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces logistically. From the business side, there's so much that goes into, you know, finding drivers and finding sponsors, and, you know, building those relationships, and, you know, bringing people on board in that regard. That's a lot of work, and it's very much not a 9-to-5 job. It's something that's with you all the time. And I think, especially in Cody's role, that's a lot of the stuff that is kind of unseen, and something that I really appreciate, because I see I see the phone calls he's having with someone at 10 o'clock at night talking about a sponsorship or a driver that they're interested in coming here. We got to take our very delayed honeymoon, and I remember Al FaceTimed Cody, and Al FaceTimed every day while we were gone, and I was just like, well, okay. So I think that there's just across the board, not just at the top level, from every single position here, there's so much more that goes into it than what people see. People see the road crew unload a truck at the racetrack, and they don't realize that they're the same ones that built that truck and got it ready and loaded it, and they're the same ones that'll be at the shop unloading it and tearing it down and turning parts and pieces around to get them ready for the next race. There's so much that goes into it. Cody and I have kind of joked, if we ever had a normal job, our kids wouldn't know what to do. Sometimes we take a step back, and I watch them having conversations with Ross or Carson, and I'm like, these kids have no idea how, that this isn't just normal. This isn't what most kids get to do. They don't just get to walk up and be like, oh, hey, Carson, you want to play catch? When Cody started at Niece, I was still working at Roush at the time, and we had found out we were going to have our first child. And I kind of was in the point where I was doing a lot of stuff for Niece in my off time. And, we were kind of hopeful that maybe I could transition, once we had Colt, from working at Roush full time to transitioning to Niece. And we were fortunate enough that it worked out that way. And so I kind of joke that Niece and Colt are almost the same age, right? They came into our family roughly around the same time. And so I honestly, and it was so soon after Cody and I got married that I don't really know our lives separate of Niece Motorsports. I have videos of Peyton learning how to walk in our race shops and celebrating birthdays, and Niece Motorsports is woven into our lives. It's certainly not just a job. We are fiercely protective over this place. We're proud to carry the Niece Motorsports logo. Representing Al is something that we're proud of. Representing our new ownership group is something that we're proud of, and it's something that we take very seriously. And so I guess the only way I can look at it is Niece Motorsports is another child to us, because we've been there through it all from the beginning and to the point that we're at now. And so it's not something that we just stepped into when it was already, grown and running. It's something that literally Cody and Al got off the ground together. And so I think that it's special because it's something that we've been a part of from the beginning.
What is it like now? Did you ever expect to walk out these doors 10 years later and see what you see today?
I don't think that, and maybe Cody, because he's such a dreamer, he's so positive, maybe he could have envisioned this. I never ever could have envisioned that Niece Motorsports would be what it is today. I remember in the beginning that they would get the trucks ready, and and then before they would load, Cody would have to stay late the night before because a couple people would stay back and they would wrap all the trucks. And so I remember just how much was on everyone's plate early on. It was a big deal when we went from one team to more than one team. And, there are points where we've run 5 trucks, and it's mind-boggling to me. Not only it's amazing to me that we have enough people to do that, it's amazing to me that we have enough parts and pieces to do that, or enough space to do that. It's taken so much to get to where it is. It's something that we don't take lightly. When we walk in here and walk around the shop and see the number of people that are here working toward a common goal, I know it's something that Cody takes a lot of pride in. It's something that I'm really proud of. I think that it's obviously the ultimate goal is winning races and championships, but I know something that Cody feels a tremendous amount of responsibility for is every person here being able to put food on their table and have a roof over their head. And so to be able to be a platform where this many people are able to provide for their families through Niece Motorsports, I don't think we could have ever imagined that it would have grown to what it is today.